And we are back on the 0 hour. As you undoubtedly know, there is an election coming up. And as you probably know, if you're a regular listener to this show, we're constantly encouraging, upbraiding, chastising Democrats to represent that progressive, uplifting, positive, transformative motion and emotion and mood that is out there in the country. There is the potential for a truly transformative movement to take place, one that's based on economic justice, one that's opposed to growing inequality, one that understands that a lack of opportunity for any is a loss for everyone. So that's what we're constantly trying to get the Democratic Party or some political party to express on behalf of the public. We constantly tell you it's a winning strategy. That we've had Celinda Lake, other pollsters on telling us that that's what the public wants. That's what will win elections. Instead, we have to say that and by the way, there have been some good examples of that. We have Democrats like Mark Begich in the red state-ish state of Alaska running on a strong program of expanding Social Security, for example. We even have a fairly conservative Democrat like Mary Landrieu in Louisiana lacerating her opponent for his willingness to cut Social Security. So we do see some green shoots out there. But overall, the political ads have not, let's put it this way, they have not always been an inspiration. Let's listen to a few and we'll tell you what we mean. The first ad, who's the first ad, Pete? Republican cuts kill. Now, this is an interesting one. We like the approach of this ad. This is from an independent group, and it makes a terrific point. So our criticism in this case is not of the ad, which is great. We'll let you know what our concerns are afterwards. The ad is called Republican Cuts Kill.
Washington actually can cut spending.
The CDC says its discretionary funding has been cut by $585 million since 2010.
Cut. Less government. Cut.
Cut. Cut.
Our budget has been flat since 2003. Responding to an emerging infectious disease threat, this is particularly damaging.
Cut.
That was the left hook.
Cut.
The right cross was the sequestration.
Cut.
The NIH saw its budget slashed by $446 million.
Cut. There are outbreaks happening today that we're not able to recognize, stop, or prevent as effectively as we should be able to.
Cut.
Make a cut.
All right, so I assume you get the idea. The idea is in an oblique way to capitalize on the general terror about Ebola and to make the point that Republican budget cuts, which have affected the CDC, make it harder to fight the Ebola epidemic. Now, it's a good ad. It's an effective ad. I like the toughness of it. I admit I have mixed feelings because I think it might be feeding this Ebola terror that some of us have been trying to counteract with reason. But it makes a good point. Here's the problem. The problem, as was quickly reported within 24 hours of this ad being released, is that the president himself, in a bid to appear centrist or bipartisan, whatever you want to call it, apparently himself proposed cuts to the CDC budget, not as severe as those the Republicans would propose, but enough for the Republicans to be able to come back and say, well, what do you mean? The president of the United States, a Democrat, proposed cutting the CDC budget himself. This is what happens when you try to be Republican light. You lose. As Harry Truman was reputed to have said, it's not exactly his exact words, but in a race between a Republican and a Republican, the Republican will lose every time. You have no argument against it. Now, the next ad is, I believe, from Wendy Davis, the popular legislator in Texas who had the filibuster against the invasive reproductive rights bills there, and is now running for governor against Greg Abbott. Let's hear that.
A tree fell on Greg Abbott. He sued and got millions. Since then, he spent his career working against other victims, Abbott argued a woman whose leg was amputated was not disabled because she had an artificial limb. He ruled against a rape victim who sued a corporation for failing to do a background check on a sexual predator. He sided with a hospital that failed to stop a dangerous surgeon who paralyzed patients. Greg Abbott, he's not for you.
Now, as this ad runs on television, you see the wheels of a wheelchair turning. Now, I can't imagine who in their right minds as a political consultant thought this was a smart idea. First of all, no matter what you say, Greg Abbott is disabled, as the ad says. I don't know who thinks it would come off as anything but mean-spirited, anything as attacking somebody for being disabled with so many issues that Wendy Davis can take on the Republicans for, including right there in Dallas with the effects of inadequate healthcare funding and the real Ebola death they've had in that city. That to think that the thing to pick on or emphasize is her opponent's disability, to think that that wouldn't backfire on her. First of all, the sheer political incompetence of it is stunning. Secondly, while I guess she's making a point, a valid point, that he sued and got millions and then tried to prevent other people from doing the same. But really, Wendy Davis, is that what you want your campaign theme to be? Don't elect the disabled hypocrite. It gets, sadly, this is, Wendy Davis became a feminist hero and then quickly began positioning herself as a quote unquote centrist Democrat, which means Republican light. And how many times do we have to say it? Even in red states, it doesn't work. If they want the Republican, they'll pick a Republican. You've got to show people who are struggling in this economy that you understand their needs, you understand that they're struggling, you understand why they're struggling, and you're going to do something about it. This ad, total misfire. Our last ad is from Allison Lundergan Grimes, reportedly the Clinton machine's handpicked candidate to run against Mitch McConnell in his home state of Kentucky. McConnell, of course, is the Senate Majority Leader in line to become, I'm sorry, Freudian slip there, Senate Minority Leader in line to become Majority Leader and take Harry Reid's place if the Republicans take the Senate. And his was considered a winnable race for the Democrats. And in fact, she was pulling even in some polls. She's struggling now. Maybe this kind of thinking is the reason why. Let's hear the Grimes ad.
Ads attacking Allison Lundergan Grimes on immigration have been called false, bizarre, and hypocritical. Only Mitch McConnell has voted to give amnesty and taxpayer-funded benefits to 3 million illegal aliens, the largest legalization program in U.S. history. Mitch is at the heart of everything that's wrong in Washington, from hypocrisy to greed to gridlock.
I'm Allison Lundergan Grimes, and I approve this message because I've never supported amnesty or benefits for illegal immigrants, and I never will.
Wow. In one sense, Mitch McConnell, the ad is right. Mitch McConnell represents everything that's wrong in Washington. In another sense, this ad represents everything that's wrong with Washington. Who thinks it's moral, ethical, or even smart to try to win a Senate seat by stepping on the rights and human dignity of another group of human beings? Who thought that was a brilliant idea? First of all, as her consultants and she herself know or should know, the term illegal aliens is insulting and dehumanizing. No human being is illegal. There may be people who got into this country illegally. There may be people who broke immigration laws. That is a legal matter, a court matter, but no human being is of their essence illegal. Would it kill her to call them undocumented immigrants? Then secondly, to attack Mitch McConnell from the right. Yes, I get it. Kentucky is a red state. Yes, I get that there are a lot of conservative people in both parties. I've got relatives from Kentucky. If your name is Powers and you live in Louisville, we're probably related, even though we've never met. But listen, who on earth thinks it's all right to insult a major portion of your base, your party's base, I should say, and to brag that I've never voted for amnesty and I never will. Well, amnesty has been it's one of the few areas where maybe, just maybe, there could be genuine bipartisan agreement that would give a lot of people a chance to become citizens of this country, perhaps citizens along with their children. So it's despicable. And again, she had Elizabeth Warren come in. We talked to David Schuster about that last week. She had Elizabeth Warren come in and stump for her. Warren's kind of high-minded populism, or emphasis on economic justice, and her emphasis on a country that works for everyone seems to have worked very well for Alison Lundergan Grimes, boosted her poll numbers significantly. Now she's running on the basis of an America that works for people, just works for people that may look and sound like Alison Lundergan Grimes. And if that's the kind of America you want, no wonder national groups have pulled their support away from her in the past week, and it now looks like that seat is going to go to Mitch McConnell. How many times do the Democrats need to be told that you've got to stand for something other than your own election? This is disheartening. It's discouraging. And before we get too depressed, we will instead remind you of the people running for office who have an inspirational message, whether it's Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Mark Begich in Alaska, or some of the others. But for God's sake, Democratic consultants, you should resign en masse and let wiser, kinder, more decent human beings take your place. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.